What's going on, everybody? MikeO back with another episode of Hobby Talk. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to listen to the show. Today I'll be talking with my good buddy Michael Fabian about growing up in this hobby, the evolution of the hobby. We both start collecting around the same time, so it's going to be great to reminisce and talk about how this hobby has evolved and changed over the years. Joining me now is Mike. Mike, welcome to the show.
Hey, Mike. Thanks for having me, brother. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm just excited to talk a little bit about baseball cards. Nothing better than hanging out at night talking about baseball cards with your buddy, is there?
I agree, man. This hobby is just it's my life. It's my passion. Anytime I get to talk about it, it's a good day. So yes, thank you for having me.
No doubt. And before we get into the cards and really get started with the show, want to touch on social media just briefly because that's how we were lucky enough to get to know each other. Social media has become a huge aspect of this hobby, just people sharing their love of this hobby, whether it's on YouTube or Instagram, Facebook, a lot of them. And I know you have a few channels, so why don't you go ahead and tell everyone where they can find you?
Yeah, on YouTube, obviously, if you guys don't know me, well, my name is Michael Fabian. My YouTube name is EasternCTSportsCards. It's kind of self-explanatory. I live in Eastern Connecticut, and I'm a big sports cards fan. So I know it sounds lame, but that's how I got my name. Same thing with Instagram. Just type it in. You'll see my logo that I've kind of used over the last few years. And I was doing the Facebook groups, but those kind of went away a little bit. But, YouTube and Instagram, hit me up, follow me if you want, or not.
Yeah, that's the great part of social media. You can follow someone or you can not follow them. It's your
Yeah,
choice, but it is a great way to just get to know people and to learn about this hobby and to kind of get ideas about what to collect. And I've preached that a lot on this podcast over the course of the life of this podcast. But that's kind of where I've become really connected. You know, I still have some family members and some friends outside of the social media realm that do collect, but most people I know now that collect, that's how I know them, is through all these great things. And not only can you meet acquaintances, you can meet friends, you can meet people that you hang out with in person, talk to, and you talk to stuff beyond the hobby. So that's definitely a great thing. And if you're enjoying this podcast, of course, you can go ahead and rate it, post a comment, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's on Soundcloud, iTunes. It just helps. It helps kind of promote it a little bit. So if you enjoy the show, please feel free to share for sure. All right, Mike. So we both grew up very similar times. I think you're about a year older than me. So we both got into collecting in the late 80s and kind of were there when this hobby kind of exploded in the early 90s. And things have just continued to evolve year by year, decade by decade, really. I guess the natural way to start is just to kind of talk a little bit about what you first were into in this hobby. Like, what was the first product that you got into?
So, I mean, obviously, I'm a child of the '80s. I was born in 1981, and it really kind of all started with like 1987 tops. To be honest with you, when I was like 6 years old, I used to go up to this like little candy store in the town that my grandparents lived in, and my grandfather used to take us in, and he would let us look around and where all the candy was and all like the stuff that kids are into. You got baseball cards, and I don't know if it was he who just bought us the first packs. It was kind of like, here, this would be something fun to do. And I specifically remember that that wood, that finish on that 87 top set, like the bat, looks like it's the bat in the background and stuff. And I was hooked, man. I really don't know if I was super into it at that point, but I always know that I kept buying and kept buying. And then the next year, a new, the new top set would come out and would buy more. I would say like 1989 is when it really started to kind of take off for me. You find out other kids your age are collecting, and it's like, oh, this is cool. You collect cards. Sweet. So do I. Let me look through your binder and stuff. And it all goes back to what these things are. I mean, they're trading cards. So you would trade with people, for players you wanted or cards you didn't have. And yeah, it kind of took off from there, man. It got really big for me after, I would say, like 1989. But I would say 1987 tops, I think, was the first pack that my grandfather ever bought me. Yeah, I remember it to this day.
Yeah, 1989 Tops was my first year. I've told this story a number of times over social media, but just got some packs of cards for my birthday. Had a little birthday party, and I just remember opening them with my dad, and we're just sitting out there on the porch opening these 89 Tops cards. I think they were probably like the cello packs, so it was sort of like 50 card packs, and
Yep.
just he
Yep.
was telling me about some of the players and kind of teaching me some of that. And I had followed baseball a little bit to that point because I'd been going to Phillies games for a couple years already, but just that experience. And it was, just one of those things that, like, when I was growing up, I was one of six kids, so we didn't ask for a lot. Like, we just, like,
Right.
inherently knew, like, there were a bunch of us, and, you couldn't have anything and everything you wanted. But that was, like, one of those times where I was like, hey, do you think we could get more of these? Like, because it was so much fun. And it kind of exploded from that moment. My dad is very, he can get very hooked on things a lot, I guess, sort of like me. So he was into
Well,
the
and
cards with me. So we went kind of bonkers there in the early 90s, but it was a lot of fun for sure.
yeah, interesting. The interesting thing with me was that my dad never really got into it. He always, I don't know. I definitely have like an addictive personality. I think by nature, that's just how I am. So I just got hooked, and my dad never really got into it with me. So it was just something that I think my brother and I kind of did with each other. Definitely had some friends in school that collected, and we just would get together and hang out and talk about the cards and things like that. I remember trading for a 1990 Topps Bo Jackson. I mean, it sounds lame, but I remember that card and the purple and the blue on the color and just everything with that card was it was a card that I didn't have and this kid had and I wanted it. And I don't know, but it isn't something that I shared with my father per se, even though he was a huge baseball fan, and that's kind of where I get my Yankees, knowledge and everything from. I mean, my dad grew up he remembers listening on the radio to Don Larson's perfect game in the World Series. And just, I got so much stuff from him over the years. But we never really shared like the hobby per se, which was kind of funny if you think about it. But I think he kind of saw it more of as a, what are you kids wasting your money on now type of thing. But, little did he know that it would grow into, I think, the juggernaut, obviously, that it's become today. Um, but he always used to tell me that he used to have a 1956 Yankees team set, which was in pretty good shape until his mom threw it out. And I was like, oh my God, the mantle, the horror.
Why did you throw it away?
Yeah, it was painful to listen to. But yeah, back then they didn't know, man. I mean, these are putting cards in their bike spokes, and nobody knew that these cards would be as valuable as they are now.
Yeah, that's one of the things that makes them antiques. So many were damaged by kids roughhousing
Yep.
with them or tossing them, and that's one of the reasons they're as rare as they are at this point. But it's just a great hobby. It's a lot of fun just sharing it with friends, family, whoever you share it with, even if it's just yourself. If you're just going through cards, and it's all it's just one of those special things, I think, because not only do you have those cards, but you have moments in time captured year by year. And I think one of the real appealing things for me is the fact that you have Topps baseball cards, Bowman cards going really back to the 50s in terms of the current structure of the cards, but obviously they made cards and tobacco cards, a century ago as well. So you have just this history that goes along with the game of baseball, specifically. Obviously football and hockey and basketball as well, but baseball really has the richest history of the four major sports, both in this hobby and on the field. And I think that's one of the appealing things, that you have that year by year kind of time capsule of different teams, players, how careers have changed, and how the cards and the designs have evolved too, which is something we'll certainly get into.
Yeah, I mean it's fascinating to me because I think a lot of people can probably mirror this sentiment of you'd give me a set and I could say I remember where I was when I opened a pack of that, or what card I pulled out of that. And it's just, there's, like you said, they're just moments in time. I feel like that you can always be like, I know exactly where I was when I pulled that card, or I remember what I was doing that year when that set came out. It's nostalgia, man. And it's just something that it's I've been drawn to it ever since I started collecting.
And obviously, this hobby has changed a lot. So back when we got started with 87, 88, 89 tops, that's
Yep.
what you had. You had a set of base cards, and you bought packs. They were obviously really big sets. I mean, 800 cards. So you bought packs with a thrill of getting either, I'm sure for you, Yankees, for me, Phillies, plus the top players in the games, some of the big rookies, the superstars. That was really what you were chasing. That has obviously changed substantially, but I mean, I take that's what you kind of were doing when you were busting some of those 87 tops. You were hoping to pull some Yankees or some of the big
Yeah.
guys.
Basically, yeah, Yankees cards, or at the time, I think the McGuire, the Bonds that's in there, but you didn't really know those. Yeah, you knew who they were, but they're not obviously what they are now. If obviously that, I think that makes sense. The Bo Jackson though, that's the Future Star card, right? Doesn't it say Future Star? Um, like I think Bo at the time was one of those people that you were late 80s, early 90s, you were kind of after, and obviously Griffey and Thomas kind of came in a little after Bo. But that's who I specifically remember, like just opening those packs and then seeing that Future Star. You were like, wow, what is this? It was special, man.
Yeah, you had, by that point, you did have your choice of products. You had Tops, you had Fleer, and you had Donruss.
Yep.
But I think things really changed forever in 1989 once Upper Deck came around. And I guess you can debate whether it was good or bad. I think it's good because we have the history and we have you need evolution, you need change in anything.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
things maybe got a little carried away. But 1989 Upper Deck, kind of when that product came out, obviously you had that Ken Griffey Jr. card, which absolute all-time classic, right up there, one of the top three most iconic cards of all time, if you ask me.
No doubt. No doubt. Yeah.
But as a whole, that set really stepped up their game because Tops, they still had that straight up cardboard cards. The
Right.
backs were just cardboard. The front were obviously colored. Different designs every year, and I'm a Tops guy, so I've always enjoyed them. Fleer and Donruss pretty similar, little different card stock maybe, but 89 Upper Deck, you had glossy on both sides. You had a hologram on the back. You had photos on both sides. So that really kind of took the hobby by storm, and that was one of the big sets that kind of I think was a huge game changer at the time.
Yeah, I mean, I remember even in 1989, buying, the packs of those was, I mean, they were not cheap, and that's because this was nothing that like anyone had ever seen at the time. You like you said, you had your Tops, you had your Fleer, you had your Donruss, um, and those were all like, they were like you said, that original cardboard like feel to it. And then when this set Upper Deck came out, and you had this glossy finish. I think the hologram, just that little hologram, was like people were going crazy. And obviously, Junior being the rookie and the number one card in that set. I mean, I remember going into my LCS at the time and seeing that card in one of those like massive screw down holders, and oh yeah, that was a card that obviously I have a few copies of it now, but at the time it was, I don't know, for me it was untouchable at the time, because either you got it out of a pack or you were paying out the what for it at your card shop. And no, that set obviously is just a game changer. It kind of just segued into obviously the next year, and then I think 1990 Leaf is one of the all time iconic sets for me, especially with that Thomas, because I would say early 90s, my guys were Griffey, Thomas, and I can't even remember if it was, I don't think Ripken was till later because of, the Iron Man chase. But yeah, it was Griffey and Thomas, man. I mean, you were looking for those guys, or Canseco a little bit. Um, but yeah, I always go back to Ken Griffey Jr. and Frank Thomas. They were it for me. Those were my dudes.
Yeah, 90 Leaf, that's a great point. That's another just absolutely iconic set. And it was yet more competition there once that set came out. Just another set for people to chase. Beautiful looking set. I just like that set a lot. And I agree, Frank Thomas. I think Griffey, Frank Thomas, I mean, that's one of the big things with the hobby. I think it's a big thing in the sport, of course, as well. But you need superstars. You need young superstars. And I
You
think
do.
that's why you're seeing a little bit of a rebirth in the hobby, in my opinion. I'm not saying it's at the level it was in 89 and 90 in terms of overall popularity, but certainly card collecting has, I think, grown a little bit in the last few years. And I think part of it is, I think Mike Trout and Bryce Harper, the Frank Thomas and Ken Griffey of a new generation, because those two guys are, coming up a year apart, pretty much the same way. They're really young, crazy talented, and,
Hmm.
potentially possible future Hall of Famers. And you need superstars in this sport. I think a lot of people, especially older people, get a little down on some of the young guys. You have guys like Aaron Judge and Shohei Ohtani, and there's other young guys too. That's Their stuff's crazy valuable right now, and obviously, of course, it may not eventually be worth what it is. But I think the thrill of the chase, the thrill of watching these guys, unique individuals take over a sport, take over a hobby, I think is ultimately a good thing for the hobby because it gets people interested. 20 years from now, you're going to have a couple guys doing a podcast. They might not be doing it this way. Maybe they'll be doing it through telepathy or something, but,
Right.
they'll be going back on, man, I remember, being 10 years old and collecting Bryce Harper and Mike Trout. So, I
It's
think
true.
that's those guys are, important.
You know, I agree with you. And the thing that's, and I'm not going to sit here and tell anyone how to collect, but it's crazy to me. Like you see, obviously, some of these guys that haven't even made it to the show, and their prospect, autograph refractors are going for $600-700, and you got guys like Bryce Harper and Mike Trout who are living it, playing it, doing it. And that's just, but see, that is how this hobby has changed over the years, is that you get people spending crazy amounts of money on players who haven't done anything. And I think I've taken a step back from that because that's just not something I'm interested in doing. So I guess if you want to say I'm not a prospector, I'm just not. Now, I don't think there's anything wrong with it if that's your thing. But if you want, if somebody said, "Hey, here's $500, either buy these guys who haven't played or go buy some Harpers and Trouts," I mean, I'm taking Harper and Trout any day because, like you said, I mean, to me, this is Griffey and Thomas from the late '80s, early '90s, no doubt.
Yeah, there's no doubt. These guys, they're so good. You just watch these guys play, and that could be a whole nother thing. That could be a whole nother podcast because I love vintage cards. I think
Yep.
vintage cards are great, but I feel like there are some collectors out there that are very kind of stuck in the past, and they just always talk about vintage. And again, collect what you like. And vintage are awesome, and I agree with the rarity of vintage. But I think some people need to turn on a baseball game and realize that you're seeing some
Yeah.
incredible baseball. There's a lot of really good players. And again, I'm not going to get into it here because you could have like a 5 hour debate, but there's greats in the past, but there's a lot of guys that are probably as or maybe even more talented than some of the superstars that people are chasing from 50, 60 years ago. So it's a great time at baseball, in my opinion.
I agree with that. I think you just watching, like you said, watch baseball now and just see these guys who are just, I mean, what some of these kids are doing is unbelievable. So it's definitely a fun time to be, in the hobby after seeing like kind of where this hobby has come from. But it's crazy to me, like, again, collect what you want, but some of these guys have just hasn't done anything, and their cards just go for it's astronomical prices. But we can, like you said, we can go on all day about it.
Oh yeah, definitely. So flashing back to the early '90s, you had that '90 Leaf set, just amazing, and it kind of had a resurgence even
Yep.
later in the '90s when Sammy Sosa was doing his thing with the McGuire, him and McGuire with the Maris chase. But that was a beautiful set for sure. And then things just kind of continued to evolve from there. It took Topps a few years to get to the glossy side of things, but eventually those products did force them to, kind of rethink things and go, okay, how are we going to compete? So then you had Stadium Club. I think Stadium Club popped up in 1991, if I remember right.
Yep,
Just
that's right.
another nice set, glossy on both sides.
The Jeff
A
Bagwell.
real focus on photography. Then, of course, people love chasing the rookies. So, like you said, the Jeff Bagwell came out.
Yep.
They had a cool thing too. I remember the backs of those cards where they'd feature the rookie card of the player. I always thought that was pretty
Correct.
cool.
That was just getting to thinking about those sets. Stadium Club was another one for me that was like, wow, this is just absolutely beautiful, because it looked like you were just holding like a professionally done mini picture in your hand, and the way it was glossy and had the rookie card on the back. And I just remember that Bagwell when he's standing on have his arm on the bleacher, right? If I'm correctly remembering
Yeah, I think
this.
he like leaning on the bat in one arm,
I
and
have a
yeah,
couple copies of that card, but I just can't think of it. But yeah, that set to me another game changer. Um, but then I think like you were saying, just with the upper deck and the leaf, and then when that Stadium Club came out, you were kind of like, wow, you can kind of see that these cards they're becoming no joke at this point. you
yeah,
know?
and another thing that it's something that I guess we're probably not going to get into, but what you see here in these early '90s when things started to evolve was competition. Yeah, these different
Yep.
companies competing against each other, and I think that is one of the unfortunate things of today's world of in terms of the hobby is that you have the different licenses with the few different companies, and they
Yep.
make what they make and they do a good job on certain things, and there's probably some things they could do a better job on, but the innovation in the early '90s with these companies chasing after each other was a huge deal, and it just kind of continued to evolve, and it evolved in big ways. Moving on to '92 real quick, and that doesn't mean we can't go back to some of these sets, but '92 was a huge year as well. Tops and Bowman put out that '92 Bowman set, which again, it's another kind of plain set, but it's absolutely beautiful. Just a classic design, really good looking. Ended up having, some great rookies in there as well. '92, you had Fleer putting out awesome sets with some big time inserts that I'm sure you'll get into. And then you had '92 Fleer Ultra, which stepped up the game on the glossy side. So, how about 1992, Mike? At that point, you're a few years into the hobby and you have all these products coming out, and it's just got to be like, wow, my head's spinning again. This
Yeah.
hobby's just going crazy.
So I was 11 years old in 1992. I was in sixth grade, I think, if I can remember correctly. But I remember 1992 Ultra was like, I just loved that set, man, and the inserts that you could get in there, the award winners, and I think that was Series One. And then in Series Two, you had the Ultra All Stars, the black, design. And then I think the next year with 93, they had like this gray look to them, which I loved. And then no, I mean, it was just like once you saw like these insert sets and these subsets, it was like, wow, these are really cool. And like with 92 Donruss, I remember going to like a local, and I hate to like date myself here, but like a local, like not a five and dime, but like, a local convenience store that had baseball cards. And I remember trying to like figure out a way how to, now I don't want to say it was pack searching, but like we always they'd open a new box of Donruss, and we always figured out that like the Diamond King was in like the sixth or seventh pack in the row, and there was always like four in a box. So we would always be like, oh, I think this is where the Diamond King is. So we'd always try to just buy like that pack, and sometimes it worked. I don't know if it was just all luck, but I just remember opening those packs and seeing that blue back, and you're like, oh, I got one of the Diamond Kings, and then of course like Thomas was in it, and it was so that Donruss 92 set for me is just a game changer, because I feel like that's where I really was like, wow, these inserts are like unbelievable. And one of the really quick side story here, I remember I think it was the same store. My brother, I don't know, he randomly buys a random pack, and this is a true story. So I would say 5 years ago, I bought a case of 92 Donruss looking to pull an elite, and I didn't pull one Elite Series out of this whole case. I think the case was like, I don't know, $150 because there's so much of it out there. But my brother randomly just one pack pulls a Tony Gwynn Elite Series, and we were all like, what? Because those were unheard of to see a serial numbered card back then, and I'll never forget that, man. He was so pumped, and I think he still has it somewhere. Craziness.
Yeah, I was lucky when I was younger. I pulled in '92. I pulled a Kirby Puckett, which actually got graded a few years ago. I ended up getting a
Nice.
PSA 9 on it, so that's really solid for a
Yeah,
card
and
for that age.
that's a deceptive set to grade,
And
truthfully.
then I remember my brother got one. I think he pulled Joe Carter, which of course was a year before Joe Carter became a villain in the city of Philadelphia. But
Yeah.
we were really lucky. We both pulled them. But then I do know my dad actually bought a case of it like way back in the 90s
Yep.
and saved it for years. And then like at some point, I don't even know, late 90s, something like that, maybe even the early 2000s, we opened that entire case and just like you, zero
Yeah.
elite. And it's
And
unbelievable. And, it's probably one of the reasons, there were some issues. So back then we had all these innovative sets, which was great for the hobby. We also had
correct.
overproduction, which hurt the hobby. And the elites are a perfect example because I think the elites are numbered to either 5 or 10,000. Might depend.
Yeah,
on the year.
I think it. Well, I think the 92s were 10, if I'm correct. I mean, correct me if
10,000,
I'm
and
wrong.
there's like
Yeah.
probably 12 or 15 different ones. And
Yep.
they're so hard to get. You don't even get one out of a case. How many cases
Yeah, I mean,
of that
think
stuff
of
did they make? It's insane.
well, think of just the odds. Like, of there's 10,000 of that one player, right? And you think of how many cases of that 92 Donruss that they put out with the overproduction that they did. I mean, do the math, dude. There's probably so many of those cards still just sitting in a case somewhere,
It's pallets upon pallets of 92 Donruss.
it's crazy to think about. But yeah, that's and I don't want to. I know you said you didn't want to. We could get into like a whole discussion about this, but one thing I think collectors, newer collectors to the hobby, won't have is this competition that we experienced back in the late 80s, early 90s, and I think that forces companies to do a better job with their stuff. And it gives the collectors an option. Like if you're like, you know what, I don't really like this set by yada yada this year, I'm going to go for this. But now it's like, look, you have this company making this and this company making this, and that's it. There you go. You don't like it, don't collect it. I mean, that's really what it boils down to.
Yeah, I think it's definitely unfortunate that things have evolved that way, but things have kind of gone that direction, I feel like, in a lot of different ways. And unfortunately, it's become part of this hobby. I'd love to say, or I'd love to see it change someday, but I certainly don't foresee that in the future. But I guess you never know.
I hold out hope that maybe some point something will change, because I think if you don't have hope, then stuff never will get done. But yeah, I mean, like you said, if you boil it down to what it is, it's all about money, and there's licenses, and they want to make their money, and that's just how it goes. So I guess I can appreciate it from a business standpoint, but from a collector's standpoint, sometimes it's a pretty hard, tough pill to swallow.
No doubt. So 1992, you had that kind of just continued spike in, I don't know if you want to call it quality or if you want to call it just creativity, but it brought up the Fleer Ultra, which they made Ultra in 91, but they were a more basic looking card. 92, just
Yep.
really bright and glossy and a lot of foil and big photos on the back. Beautiful product. And I brought up Bowman, you brought up the Fleer and all those subsets. That was really when I think inserts, the Diamond Kings, you had a lot of inserts coming out, which were all big, and inserts start becoming a bigger and bigger deal. So it was moving beyond just base cards. And in 93, things kind of stepped up their game again. You had Upper Deck coming out with SP, which of course ended up producing, another one of the all-time classics, the Derek Jeter. Just, foil like crazy, like you'd never seen before. And you had Pinnacle coming out, and Pinnacle was, a decent set, but they had, you start moving towards parallels with the museum collection, just incredible looking cards. And then, Topps also put out Topps Finest for the first time, and it was like, whoa, what is this? These cards are like chrome looking. It was really the introduction to the world of chrome looking cards. And again, with the parallels, you had the refractors, which were a lot tougher to get than current day refractors, but they were unbelievably beautiful with the shine they provided. And again, the evolution of the hobby just kind of continued, and it really spiked from what we talked about with the competition of the companies. But what are some of your memories from back in 93 with some of these products?
Well, just to backtrack real quick, 92 Pinnacle, when they came out, they had obviously they had the regular packs, and they had the jumbo packs, and they had those Team 2000 cards in them. which you would get like 3, I think, in a jumbo pack. And it was pretty cool because you could put like this whole set together. But I think just to go, on this 92 Pinnacle, those team Pinnacle cards, I actually have one sitting right on my desk down here that I was going to list on eBay. But besides the point, they're just like, to me, kind of like iconic for that, because they were really, well, for that set, they were really tough to get. I think it was, I don't know, 1 in 96 packs. So you're thinking maybe 2 or 3 boxes, you'd get one team Pinnacle. And it was double sided with like, whoever the people were. I think the one I have is like Griffey and Brett Butler or something like that.
I remember that card.
Dodgers.
That card was awesome. I used to love that card.
Yeah,
Because for some reason when I was a kid, I was like Brett Butler. I don't know. I guess because he was just a scrappy, kind of seemed like a little guy who was doing big things. And, Griffey obviously being the superstar he was. But yeah, that's another just super sweet set. And if you're into the modern day grading, you get a 10 on a big one of those, you're doing all right.
Yeah, I still kind of look around. Just another side story. I still kind of look around for some of those PSA 10 of those team Pinnacles. They are not cheap. They are tough cards with the black borders on the bottom, and basically there's dark throughout the whole card, so you get chipping everywhere. Tough set to grade. But to go to your point of 93, I remember going into my local card shop in 1993 and like seeing the price. I don't remember what the price was, but I remember the owner, I was like, wait, is that per pack? And he's like, yeah, this is something new that Upper Deck's doing. And I was like, oh, okay. And I think the same thing with Finest. I was like, wait, that's not the box price? He's like, no, that's the pack price. I'm like, oh my God. And there's where I kind of was like, this is getting crazy,
And little did you know, it would actually get crazier.
No, and
20 years later, you'd have freaking $1,500 boxes where you get like 4 cards.
Oh, and sticker autos. So shame on the companies that do that. I'm not going to name their names, but if I'm buying look, give me a break. If I'm buying $1,500 worth of your product, you better have those people signing those cards, on card autographs. Give me a break. I'm sorry. I feel strongly about that. I think that is just utter nonsense. But anyway, so back to 93, you could see the shift in where it was going. Like things were starting to get more expensive. That's really what it was. And as a 12, 13-year-old kid, you're like, God, can I even afford to do this anymore?
Yeah, and it's just crazy how prices started to spike. But man, I love that 93 Finest set. Just to me, that's just one of those all-time iconic products for me personally. It'd be right there. I've never made a list, and I think it'd be tough to do, but it'd absolutely be top 10, top 5, maybe top 3. Just love the look of those cards. And Finest is a really weird product. Obviously, it's been around for over 20 years now, but they have some years that I think are just incredible, like 93, and then like 94, they had like the green borders, and I was just kind of like, that is not nearly as nice. But 93 right. And those 93 refractors are unbelievable.
They are.
I'd love to kind of put together maybe a Phillies team set of the refractors or something, because they have mostly commons in that product.
Yeah, that would
but
be.
Even common refractors are still probably like $25 at this point.
Yeah, they're not. That product is again another game changer. Just to backtrack real quick, 1992 Fleer. I'm sure a lot of people on here will remember the jumbo packs and the rookie sensations, the Frank Thomas. So it's same type deal. Like when you were opening, you'd see the blue and you're like, oh man, I hit the rookie sensation, and let's pray that it's Frank Thomas, because there wasn't many other good people in there. I think Juan Guzman was in there. I don't know. I'm just throwing people's names out that I remember off the top of my head, but those inserts, man, they were just like game changers for me, and you could see where the hobby was going.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that was one of the things that changed, like I mentioned kind of earlier on the podcast. You had just the straight base cards. And people obviously collected rookies, and they collected their favorite players and teams, made binders, sets, whatever. But then not only did you have the products step up and the products evolve and change and just nicer overall, better made products, I guess you could say, more creative, but the inserts started to move along. you had some special cards, obviously, that were part of the sets over the years. Diamond King started that way. You would have
Sure.
all stars or different things like that. But the insert sets, having something to chase, I think that's another thing that got people kind of on board on the hobby. People like chasing stuff. People, a lot of people like to collect things because they like it, but a lot of people like to collect stuff for the thrill of the perceived value. And you see that from time to time with trends and things that go on outside of this specific hobby.
Oh yeah.
And I think inserts were one of the big things that did that. And, you had the early versions really with the Donruss Elite. You had the early versions of autographed cards. Now, they were extremely difficult to pull, but
Very.
but that's, just something that eventually would take over the hobby. It took a while for it to take over, but just incredible stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting too because I remember back in even 91, 92 score, they put with I think it was the DiMaggio, and you have the Mantle and the triple with Yaz and Mantle, and I think it was Stan Musial. Am I correct in saying that? I don't remember if that was who
so.
It was the triple auto. But you could. It's another example. You could probably buy 5 or 6 cases. You'd never hit one of those autographs, man. I mean, they're so hard to find. But you would see these things back in the day, and you'd be like, yeah, how am I ever gonna have a chance to pull one of those? And I think they even did it in 90. Just a random thought. I think they did it in 92 Ultra. Didn't Gwyn have autos in that? Something like 1,500 to 2,000 copies. I don't remember. But it was going on, but I think being a kid, you're like, that's never going to happen to me, It's totally changed now.
Yeah, it's just crazy. And unfortunately, I think a lot of the steam got taken out of the hobby in 94 due to the strike, unfortunately, which as a baseball fan, I remember crushed my soul that year. The Phillies were awful. In 94, just injury riddled and just falling apart. But
yeah, interestingly enough, the Yankees were actually right before 95, and when they got their hearts crushed in the playoffs against the Mariners, they're having a pretty good year in 94, and then the strike happened, and that was pretty disappointing.
And I think there's actually a lot of cards in 94 that ended up coming out, and I think they were actually lower produced than a lot of other sets in the early 90s, but just there was nothing super special about them. So I think that was a little bump in the road for the hobby for sure.
I do, yeah.
Because a lot of people would
that.
protest, they're like, oh, I'm not supporting baseball here and there. And then, eventually people got over it a little bit because, well, you go back to some of the stuff you love, and if people love the sport, they truly enjoy it, you're gonna go back to it eventually.
Yeah, and I just had a random thought, and I know, it seems like a lot of times people are like, man, you got a pretty extensive football collection. I'm a baseball card fan first and foremost. That is what got me started. That is what I know. I got into football a little bit in the, I would say, late 90s. Actually started buying some in 94, 95, but never got into it until like the late 90s, early 2000s. And then I kind of disappeared from the hobby because, I was in college and stuff like that, and just other things were interesting to me. You could probably figure out what that was. But anyway, yeah. And so first and foremost, like I'm a baseball card fan, and that's where I got started in this hobby. And it's just one of those things. I think you could collect, baseball, football, whatever you want to do, but I feel like everyone always has an origin. You either started doing something and expanded, or, I don't feel like everyone was like, oh, I've always collected all 4 sports. I just don't see it.
Yeah, and for me, I never really was into basketball or hockey very much. I was definitely into football a little bit. I remember my brother liked it a little more than me. Like in 1991, I remember him getting some action packed and stuff like that. But, I got into football in the early 90s, or like 93, 94.
Yeah.
And, there were a lot of cool products there, and you had some different stuff, playoff and different things like that. And
I remember opening a lot of Pacific in like 94, 95, maybe. I don't remember why.
And the Wild card.
Yeah,
Who made them? Were they called Wild
oh,
Card? I don't even
yeah,
remember
no, it
who
was
actually
wild
produced
card,
them.
but it was the black and like the red and yeah, I remember all of it.
Yeah, I had a bunch of that
Yep.
stuff too. I was never really into basketball. I remember like in the late '90s having some, like I don't even know why, like buying some. So
So
I think I had some probably like rookies that are probably worth a good amount now that I probably sold cheap as hell because I was just like I don't want this. Like I probably
the
had Tim
only
Duncan rookies. I don't know if they're even valuable. I have no clue.
The only time I was into it, interestingly enough, was 1992 because it was Shaquille O'Neal's 92-93 Shaquille O'Neal's rookie year, and it was a Shaq craze at the time.
I think I remember.
And
Didn't he have a
so
card in like a McDonald's set or something? I think I might have had that.
I'm pretty sure. I believe so. I know for me, again, back to Ultra, his rookie in there, and then he had an insert which was like really tough to pull. It was like called the Rejector. And I mean, that card even at the time, I think was going for like $100. People were just like, obsessed with Shaquille O'Neal. And so I did a little bit of that, but then it never, like, I was never into like constantly buying basketball. It was just, I want to say it was kind of like a fad at the time for me.
Yeah, I think the
I
same
always went
thing.
back to
Like
baseball.
late '90s, I think I had some hockey, and eventually it's like, why am I buying this stuff? Like I don't care enough. That's cool
Right.
if other people do, but
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
kind of baseball football, and I've trended more towards baseball in recent years due to me not really being thrilled with the overall products provided by the football provider. But again,
Right.
I know there's a lot of people who are really into football, and I'll buy some, of course, and I like it, but
Sure.
that's definitely something that I've moved towards singles more so if there's stuff I like. But just
Yeah, like lately I've been kind of it's weird. I feel myself going away from I know you and I were having a conversation about this earlier, talking about, you know, I, one-on-ones and things like that. Like they're just I don't know, they're not doing it for me anymore. Like I'm almost reverting back to when I was collecting when I was a kid, like the old inserts, the rookie cards, and even like talking about like newer sets, like 2018 tops, like I'm going to buy some guys rookies from the Yankees, but just their base rookie cards. And I think that's just because, you're seeing people can argue this. Maybe it's a point for another day, but you're seeing a trend again where the overproduction is happening. Now it's happening on parallels. Now it's happening on autographs. Now it's happening on one-on-one. It's like there's only so many one-on-ones you can have. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's been overtaken. Just to kick it back real quick. So you
Yeah.
had once things started to recover from the strike in 96, 97, 98, you just had more and more and more products come out.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut your time. I like the
No, no.
timeline because I'm a dates guy. I always remember the specific dates or days of the week when I don't know. My wife thinks I'm crazy, but anyway.
No, I was going to speed through it, but my point was going to be there was awesome stuff that came out. But once you
Yeah,
got to 97,
yeah,
98, 99, you had Topps Finest. Then you had, still Stadium Club. Then they made Stadium Club like Chrome for a while. You had Topps Chrome come out.
yeah.
You had
A lot of people
Bowman's
forget about
Best.
Stadium Club Chrome, man. That's a great looking product.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, I think they only made it for like 2 years. But you had
I did. Yeah, it wasn't long. It wasn't long.
you had Bowman's Best come out and along with Bowman, and it just kind of continued from there. And some of these products have stuck around on the baseball side of things, but you really had just a crazy amount of products, and that was going for I just rattled off some of the tops ones, but you still
Right.
had the multiple companies going on. I mean, Fleer was making stuff like Fleer Legacy or something, or Flair Showcase, like
Flair. Yeah. Yep. Flair Showcase. Yep.
just all
Yep.
kinds of crazy stuff, and they just kept making stuff. And then eventually, of course, was I guess the late 2000s when you had things change. It might have been even a little later than that, actually. I guess it was probably 20. I don't even know what year was it. 2012, 2011, when the
Well, I
companies kind of broke off.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact time frame. I just know, like, in terms of me, and I don't want to say like I never from like 95 to 99 I was still pretty involved in the hobby. That's I graduated high school in 99, so I went to college that fall, so I kind of lost interest in the hobby a little bit then. Um and so from 99 till I want to say about 2004 I didn't buy like anything. And then my buddy and I, this is a random story. Sorry to go off on this tangent, Mike, but random story. My buddy, and it was like, hey, do you want to go to like this baseball card store in like this town that we lived near? And I'm like, yeah, whatever. And he's like, all right, let's do it. So we go. We each spent like I don't know, a ton of money on stuff. And we were opening the packs, and I'm like, I distinctly remember the card, and I don't know what happened to it. I don't know if I sold it after that or. It was in 2004, and I opened some Fleer product. I can't even remember what it was, but it was a quad jersey of, like 4 little swatches of Ripken, Molitor, Yount, and I think it might have been Brett, the 3,000 hit guys. And I just remember seeing it and being like, wow, what in the hell are they doing with, cards nowadays? This is insane. And now, like, to someone, that card would be like, oh yeah, that's worth like $5.
Big
you know
deal.
what I mean?
Quad relic.
But so that's just how, like, over the course of however many years, it's gone and changed so much. Even in 2004, which, I mean, it seems like a long time ago now, but I mean, then I was like, God, what are they doing? There's autos and all this stuff. It was wild to be away from it for, at that time, I think 5 years, and then opening product, you're like, I don't even know what's going on anymore. This is nuts.
Things really just took off. The years have come and gone, and obviously now we have Topps, who makes baseball. I guess Upper Deck's making hockey. Panini has their basketball, and they have a stranglehold on football, unfortunately.
Yes.
But, things have just gone insane, and it's really weird because I sometimes sit there and I think to myself, like, what is the future of, like, these current year cards? Because I look back at the trend that's been going on where a lot of people who are in their mid-30s, maybe through their mid-40s, that are kind of taking a step back and going back to, when they used to collect in the 90s, and 90s inserts and parallels and all that stuff is kind of taken off to a degree or found a new life. At least that's kind of my vision of it. People are getting really into it, and I look sometimes, and you can get some stuff pretty cheap, but a lot of stuff goes for pretty good money. A lot of it's really hard to find. The old Hot Gloves cards for what were they, Flair, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Flair.
A bunch of cool inserts and parallels, and I haven't looked the last few weeks, but for a while there, I was kind of searching eBay a lot for the 1997 finest embossed refractors, because those things are gorgeous looking.
They're beautiful cards.
But them certain players, I'm looking at them like, that's worth a lot more than it was back then. I see something at like $600-700. It's insane.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think what's great about the hobby, like I think Nate Topps 85 401 touched on it in your podcast about. Like how, when you were first collecting, you might not have been able to afford this stuff, but now you can as you get older, if that makes sense. So I see a lot of people just reverting back to what they used to collect.
But that's kind of my point on the current year stuff. So things are overproduced. Like there's too many one-of-ones, so a one-of-one is not as special as it used to be, and there's too many relic cards and even too many autographs, and I'm an autograph collector. I love collecting autographs of either players I like or teams or, whatever. And, product to product, some are different, and some you like more than others. But I guess my kind of thought process is, what will these things be like 20 years from now?
Yeah,
like,
it's an interesting question. Yeah,
there's certain serial numbered things, and I'm not as obsessed. I think they over serial number things. There's too much stuff. Like, I don't think every card needs to be serial numbered. And there's, like you said, it's just, I think they make far less cards now overall of each card than they did in the early 90s. But there's so many versions of these cards, it's insane, and it can be hard to keep up with. But obviously, you have guys that aren't going to work out. There's rookies that are hot now that people forget about in 20 years. But the guys that are really good, like, I just wonder what that future holds when, the people who are 15 now are 35 and maybe they have some more money to spend and they go back. I just think it's interesting to think, where this stuff will be price-wise, because I think a lot of it's going to dry up. You see the stuff in the 90s that's dried up. You even see stuff in the 2000s, and I try and search. I actually try and search constantly eBay for 2013 finest. They did the 1993 finest insert set.
Yep.
There's not a lot of them. Like
No,
I
and no,
search
and
them like every 2 weeks, and there's just not a lot. So it's like they're all stuck in collections.
right.
So I don't know. It's just kind of a random thought from me, and I don't
Well, and
really have an
then
answer for it.
you take the other side of it too, where let's say you've got a rookie class who is just, it's dominant. When the product comes out, maybe it's not as hot, right? And then you find out the guy's a stud. I don't know, whoever you want to, use a name, whoever. And then all the wax jumps up, so it prices everyone out from breaking it because you're not guaranteed to get that person. So either the cards are all sitting, as you said, in someone's collection, or they're sitting in $350 boxes of cards, which 2 years ago were $50, i.e., Jimmy Garoppolo with the Future Watch. Not saying talking about football, segueing into football a little bit here, but that's a perfect example. 2014 SP Authentic Football. I broke a couple of those boxes at the National in 2015 for $40. Those are $300 boxes now because of this guy who has played in five NFL football games. But I
Excuse
guess
me,
my whole
Mike. I believe he's played in 8 games.
Oh, excuse me. Yeah, is it 8? I don't remember, dude. The season was kind of a blur for me because the Giants were so bad. Anyway,
No, but yeah, I agree. People go crazy with that stuff. But I guess people like to try and get out ahead of the big rookie because I think historically, at least in modern times, the really,
yeah,
really expensive rookie cards are the guys that people didn't expect that much out of. Obviously, you have Tom
that
Brady, who's, I guess, probably the prime example. Here's a guy who, was a late draft pick, and therefore he wasn't in a lot of products. Like Topps didn't even make a
right,
card of him. He had
right,
Bowman, so he has a number of rookies, but like they just weren't overproduced. They weren't in as many products, and honestly, he was probably thrown in common boxes, and that's why you see so many that are not gradable or not high
yeah. The
graded.
condition
So
is really really bad
obviously
on a lot of them.
Brady's a kind of unique example of that. People at the time didn't think he was going to go on to be one of the greatest ever. So that's why you
Right.
see the insane prices on him. And even Mike Trout, he's in that
Yep.
2011 Topps update set. He's not in many other products that year. He's in a few, I guess. But the
Correct.
Topps
Yeah.
update is not necessarily an overproduced set because the base tops, you end up having opening day versions and you have retail team sets and retail hobby set. All that update doesn't get that treatment. And he, next thing you know, he's right there historically with the greats of the game. And there are a lot of people who didn't really take care of those cards. And, it's a little easier to find a PSA 10 of his card than, the
Yeah.
Brady rookies. But I know people, a friend of mine and yours, I'll give him a little shout out there, Whisker Griff on YouTube.
Oh,
Buddy
he had the
Ed,
Trout. He had the Trout rookie and sold it or something crazy like
he
that,
so
right?
he had multiple Trouts, right? And
Oh
apparently
God.
I think he said he might have given a few away, but he also sent a few out TTM and never got them back. He sent them out for potential autographs, never got them back, just lost them, and now it's
Yeah. That's
a
heartbreaking.
couple $100 card. Like, but at the time you were like, this guy could be a good player. You didn't think he's gonna be, potentially on his way to the Hall of Fame and among the
Yeah.
best players in baseball.
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, that's just kind of the you just don't know. You don't know what's going to happen, and so when you're opening, I mean, I guess one of the things you could do is if you open a lot of wax is, put them away, put them aside, sleeve them up, put them in a binder. If you open multiple boxes and you got multiples of the same player, hold on to them, because you just never know. Just to use a Yankee as an example, 2-3 years ago, Judge. I mean, I was buying Judge rookies and autos for like $12. They were worth nothing, and then he comes up last year and it just exploded. Because he was up the year before and he was awful. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm
So
pretty sure
it's
I
just
walked by him in Trenton a few times and was like, I don't know who this guy is. I don't need his autograph.
and I'm not saying that, and I had a lot of him because I was a Yankee fan. It was just, I like to collect Yankee prospects, and I lucked out on a lot of those. But you just don't know. I mean, the stuff was going for, like I said, $12 to $15, and now, I mean, those cards, I think I sold a couple of them for Because in my opinion, I'll keep a couple, I'll sell a couple, right? I mean, they were going for $250 to $300. You can't justify, I guess, holding on to all of them when there's such a demand for them at the time. You have to, because you have to obviously support your hobby. So
Yeah, there's no
you
doubt
have to
about
make,
that. Like, that's a
yeah,
lesson I've learned over the years. Like, you can't keep everything.
no,
I mean, I
no.
think if money was no option, we would just buy, and never get rid
Yeah,
of
I mean,
anything. But you have to be smart with stuff. So, I'll do the same thing. It's like, you just can't keep them all. Can't keep
but I
everything.
mean, I think, it's interesting, like, just to go back to the Jimmy Garoppolo, because of the Future Watch, the Brady obviously has made, well, Garoppolo's Future Watch in Spa 14 kind of like that Future Watch is iconic, right? Like the Derek Carr as well. Um, my question would be, to play devil's advocate, is what happens if Garoppolo turns out to be nothing? People have been, people bought $600-700 cards from off of people. The people that are going to make out at the end of the day are the people who sold those cards. I'm just saying, unless we all know for sure he's the second coming of Tom Brady, which I don't know, maybe. The people who are going to lose are the people who bought those cards, in my opinion.
Yeah, you definitely need a few of these guys who take the hobby by storm. You need them to hit. You need them to be good players, and you don't want people to lose interest. I do think that's an important thing for sure, but it's
Correct.
fun to see how things evolve, and people definitely just always get hyped up. People love the hype. The hype is really one of the big things, and you're seeing it now this year with Otani. I mean, people are
Oh
going
yeah.
nuts for his stuff. And I think this rookie class has a chance to be really good. I think last year's rookie class was really good. I think Judge obviously
Yes.
had a spectacular season, but I think a lot of people started to even lose sight of what some of these other guys do. Because, I mean, obviously him being a Yankee is one of the key factors for the value of his cards. Because whether
Yes, it
people
helps
like the
quite a
Yankees or
bit.
dislike them,
Yeah.
they're highly collectible. But, I mean, Cody Bellinger had just an incredible season last year. And even guys like Alex Bregman, who was playing great in the World Series, and Andrew Benintendi, and there's others as well. And I think this year in baseball is kind of similar to a degree. You have a lot of good young guys. Not all of them have necessarily gotten off to good starts, but I mean, I don't know. I think it'll be interesting to see how things evolve with some of these guys like Andujar and
Yep.
Rafael Devers, who I don't know what his numbers are, but it seems like his hobby stuff has kind of tailed off a little bit, just in general. But the Otani stuff
Devers.
is crazy.
But yeah, obviously, right now we got Otani's kind of, taking control of the hype right now, and with good reason. I mean, if you've watched, I mean, let's be honest here. We collect because we're sports fans, right? I mean, I would hope. I mean, what the guy's done over the first, few weeks of the season has been nothing but short of incredible, in my opinion. Let's just see how the season pans out, though. It's a long year. I don't know what's going to happen. Obviously, if he does phenomenal, his stuff is just going to continue to go up. But that gives other people an opportunity, like you were talking about, guys like Rafael Devers, Andujar. That's the time to pick up their stuff because people are going berserk over Otani right now.
Yeah, when people go crazy over one guy, there's not necessarily enough money to go around to everyone else. So I'm looking forward to some products later this year. I don't know if they'll be affordable to break because of the Otani factor, but
Right,
I
right.
still think, if I don't know what's going to happen with Ronald Acuna, if he's going to get called up or not. But if he gets called up and he's in products later this year, and Scott Kingery for the Phillies, who's off to a great start, his hobby stuff has gone berserk since he got called up.
Right.
It's crazy. I don't think. Obviously, there's people buying his stuff because, like I said, his stuff has gone up. But a lot of the general baseball fans probably haven't even seen him play. They don't know much about him. But I think that'll change as the year goes on. So you
Sure.
start adding those guys who haven't been in the early year products. It'll be. I think it'll be a lot of fun. And I do think that I think the hype is overall good for the hobby because it brings attention to the hobby.
Well, it
You know,
it doesn't, and again, let me clarify what I mean by, it's not for me anymore. Yeah, there's a couple guys who I'm like, oh, here's someone who I think is going to get overlooked. Time to buy, his stuff's super cheap, buy him. But overall, I would say I just don't get involved with the hype. But to your point, I think it's fantastic for the hobby because it brings attention. It gets people excited, like, and that's what you want. I mean, I think the bottom line is that you want the kids excited. You want the younger generation to be excited about collecting and, seeing these players and seeing them in cards and getting their rookie card or getting their auto if they're fortunate enough to pull an Otani. But like I think overall it's a good thing. It's just not for me at this point anymore.
Yeah, and things have evolved, and I think things always have a way of changing and going backwards a little bit too. You see it. I think a lot of Topps most popular products are the retro-looking sets. Gypsy Queen and Topps Heritage is always a really popular set, and I think it's because there's that core part of the hobby out there, all these collectors that love that basic stuff, and you get a little flavor with it too. You get chance for autographs and relics and all that stuff, but that's not the point of those sets for sure.
Right.
And I do think it's a little unfortunate how overproduced the numbered stuff and the relics and jersey swatches and all that stuff is, because you get to a point where you're opening boxes like, I got a relic of this guy. It's like, that just shows that they've made too much. But,
I think something that and I mean, the hobby is ever evolving, but I think one of the things that I've been doing, and this is, again, just a personal thing, with all my stuff, I've been looking at if, is the card or the relic in the card game used or not. If it's not game used, I don't really feel the need to keep it. Like the player worn stuff, or not from any specific game, event, or season. It's like it's not finding a place in my collection anymore. So I've been kind of trying to move a little bit of that stuff out and keep the stuff that says, yes, this was worn by yada yada in an actual NFL or MLB game. Like, that's cool, but to each their own. So again, I think that's just the beauty of the hobby. You have a choice.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Like, you collect what you want to collect. For me personally, I have been going that route of going back and checking out old school stuff from when I was, a teenager, the stuff from the early 90s and mid 90s. And, I like collecting that stuff and going back and finding, oh, wow, I didn't even realize they made this player or something like that. But,
Sure.
in terms of current stuff, I'm into the autographs. I'll collect the autographs. I'll pick up autographs of some of my favorites and just different players I like. I don't need to put guys into like, all right, this guy is a Hall of Famer, therefore I'll collect them. You just collect what you like. That's the way I go about it. But I love base cards. Base cards
Me too,
are awesome.
Man.
Like, I don't want, a stack of 5,000 count boxes of them, of just things that have nothing to do with it. But there's something fun about cracking a few boxes, or even if they're just blasters, and just kind of what I've been doing is for the year, I'll just kind of make up a binder. I'll combine maybe like 2 years, even if it's just a 9-page binder from one product, maybe a couple from, some of the products with more cards. And then you can go through and go back and make, man, I remember that guy and that guy and that guy. And you can look at the different designs and how they've evolved and stuff like that. So I think that's all fun. The hobby, like we've been discussing, has changed a lot. You take someone, if you brought someone back that was around in 1960, you went back with a time machine and shot them forward to 2018, they'd be like, what in the heck? They'd be like, their head would explode. So
of course.
That's just the way it is.
Yeah, and I think, obviously, in anything in life, if you're not receptive to change, I think, I don't want to say you get left out in the wind, but you kind of do. Like you said, a lot of people complain and they say, oh, everything's just an auto or a relic or a numbered card now. Well, no, it's not. I mean, they got base rookies, they got base cards. You can collect all this stuff if you want to. Something I've been doing and getting into is like, you get a ton of rookie cards and you're like, oh man, this is of a good player. Like, I'm going to try to see if I can get some of these graded and keep some or move some to, to support your hobby. And I don't know, like, grading more simple cards for me has been something I think that I've started to enjoy a little bit more than just, oh, I got this auto, I gotta get it in to get my fake gem mint 9.5, from whatever that company. No, but you know what I mean. Like, I'll get into that on another day maybe. But no, but like I think that it all boils down to, you can collect what you want, but don't not open a 2018 product because you think, oh, it's just all autos and garbage. Well, It's not, though. There's rookies, there's base. You can put a set together if you want. You can put an insert set together if you want. I don't know. There's just options, and I think people aren't always receptive to change and things of that nature.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I do agree that things have changed, and I think it's become a little much with the number of parallels and all that. But again,
I do agree with you.
That's
there.
just the way it is. So we'll see how things evolve. But we do still have all those other sets, so it's kind of fun to look back. I'm sure, again, 5-10 years, you'll be looking at different stuff and be like, man, I wish it was back like it was in 2018 when I had 100 different parallels instead of 1,000. Like, you never know. But
that's true. That's true, man.
It's always fun to collect. It's always fun to reminisce, to go back. All those classic sets. Now I'm sitting there thinking, man, I should go look at 92 Fleer and see if I can buy a jumbo box. And
dude, go find him for
go. Thomas. I'm actually looking at the checklist. Man. There's a few decent guys in there.
Who else was Scott Laius in that set? I just remember him from that set.
Yeah, he's number 20. Right? He's card 20.
Yep, for the Twins. That's right. Oh,
but you have Ivan Rodriguez, so there's a Hall of Fame right there.
I forgot Pudge was in
you
that.
Have him and Jeff Bagwell. Jeff Bagwell, and Frank Thomas are the best. And outside of that, you have Jeff Facero, Todd Van Poppel.
Yeah, Van Poppel.
Brian McRae, Chuck Knobloch. I mean, Knobloch had an okay career.
Chuck Knobloch, oh, God.
Wes Chamberlain.
The humanity of
Chamberlain.
The humanity of the Chuck Knobloch with the Yankees. I mean, good Lord, he just forgot how to throw. It was unbelievable.
You gonna go try and pull a Chito Martinez Baltimore Orioles card out of that set?
Sure, why not? But no, what's funny is I totally forgot about the Bagwell and the Pudge because I think that Thomas just overshadows it so much. Because you had Bagwell in. What was it? Was it 90? Was 91? 91, the rookies in the Stadium Club, and I don't know. I feel like not by 1992. Technically, I mean Thomas had what 3 years of cards? 90, 91, 92. Yeah. So I don't know. I just feel like he was the guy though in like 92. You were looking at him and you're going, damn. So Big Frank, yeah, he kind of dominated that set for me. But yeah, there's some good players in that.
Yeah, you gotta go Google later the 1992 rookie sensations Phil Plantier. I've never seen a guy crouch down so much on a baseball card.
Yeah, the former Boston Red Sox.
He's like kneeling on the ground almost. It seems.
Yeah, he played for the Padres too, I believe, at one point. But yeah, he had a crazy his knees were almost on the dirt. It was insane.
Yeah, it's so weird. It looks like he's stooping in the woods on this card. It's so weird.
Oh my God.
Well, I mean, it's just crazy looking back, and man, there's so many classic sets. It's
crazy. Yeah,
it's amazing. It's just a lot of fun.
It is, man. It is.
But yeah, I mean, it's just great looking back. The hobby is just filled with classic cards, especially, the older you get, the more classics there are in your mind. And, one of the great things, too, the hobby's evolved in certain ways for the better, for sure. In certain ways, maybe not in the way that you most like or are greatly happy about. But the thing is, you can always go back, and there's plenty of old wax from the 90s that you can go out and buy, and you can always revisit your own collection. And it's something that I always have to kind of remind myself, like, you don't have to pick up something new. You can go through your own stuff and almost you start forgetting about things. So it's a lot of fun, Mike. This hobby's been great. And just want to see if you have any final thoughts, any other classics you want to touch on real quick?
In terms of like the classic set, this is just something for me. 1995 Leaf baseball, because of the statistical standouts inserts. This is where you kind of first saw these are only in hobby packs, and you got your first taste of like, I don't know. You'd have to go back and really do the research to find out, but I remember seeing that and asking my guy at the card shop like what it meant, and he just would say, well, there's some that you can get in like a department store and some that only I get. And I remember chasing that Frank Thomas, which was numbered to 5,000, and just another really, really beautiful looking card. I must have opened 2 or 3 boxes trying to find it, and I never did, but I eventually bought it on eBay. Gotta love it.
Hey, you eventually got it, right? That's all that matters.
Yeah, absolutely.
It'd be awesome if they went and produced a set now and serial numbered stuff to 5,000. I wish that some set would do it just to troll collectors, just to see the outrage.
People would just be like, "What is this?"
No, 5,000.
Yeah, I would say just I would say a couple final thoughts. Just overall, is that I think the hobby is stronger than ever, and if I had to change one thing, it would definitely be to get away from the exclusivity of the licenses. But obviously, one man can't change that. You need people to act on it. That would be my one complaint. I know I don't want to sound like I'm crying about it, but that would be the one thing. If I could change it, I would. But other than that, dude, it's still the best. I have just as much fun as I do now as I did when I was like 6 years old. So.
Yeah, except now you can actually look back at those memories too. So it's kind of weird. It's like you can look back and be like, wow. And then I do that sometimes. I just sit there and I look at a product. I'm like, oh, wow, that's 20 years ago. Wow, how is that 20 years? And then all of a sudden you realize, like, oh, that means I'm 20 years older. Holy crap.
I know, it's crazy, man. It is. But I think the hobby is stronger than ever. There's definitely things that you can do. Just different aspects of the hobby. There's so much stuff, but I would definitely, one thing I would say to anyone who might listen to this, like on your YouTube channel, if you're looking to get involved with social media, give YouTube a shot, guys. People are here to talk about the hobby, share their collections. And if you're hesitant about doing a video, I would just try to say, get out there and do it, and then join a great group of people, who really just, love to talk about this hobby and really look out for each other too. I mean, it's amazing. So those are kind of some final thoughts, Mike.
Yeah, I think there's just so much you can learn on social media, and I've just kind of gotten into the Instagram thing. I'm not totally into it. Like, I like following it and going through it, and it's pretty cool, but I still love the interaction on YouTube. Personally, I just feel like you get to know people, and there's a lot to listen to. I mean, visuals of cards are cool, and I'll sit there and see a card, and it'll flash back and be like, you know what? I got to look that up. I want to try and collect that, but there's just so much to learn, not only about cards that are coming out, but the history of cards or stuff to look out, possibilities that you might not even be involved in, different cards that aren't even on your radar. So, it's just good to, I think, be involved with different collectors. But, just one final thought too is I think the hobby's also strong in the retail market. You see it a lot, at least for me, when I look at Targets and Walmarts. I mean, they move a lot of stuff, especially certain sets that are popular. So it's nice that even though we have less LCS local card shops than we did back, 20 some years ago, there's obviously a vast number of online retailers that you can buy from. And the, big box retailers are selling stuff as well. So there's a lot of options if you're looking to pick up new stuff, and obviously you have eBay and so many other websites to buy singles. So it's a lot of fun. But Mike, I really appreciate you joining me. It was a fun talk. It's always fun catching up with you, fun talking about the hobby, fun reminiscing about some sets that kind of changed the hobby as we kind of grew up with this hobby.
Yeah, brother, I really appreciate you having me on. I had a good time. It's like I said, I could go on for hours and hours and hours, but we only have a short period of time here. So again, thanks for having me on, man.
We'll certainly have to have you again at some point. We'll have to have you back on the podcast for sure.
I'm always down for that.
All right, guys, thank you so much for listening to Hobby Talk with MikeO. Thank my guest, Michael Fabian, for joining me. Go ahead and subscribe on iTunes. You can subscribe to the podcast on Soundcloud or YouTube. Check them out. And if you enjoyed the episode, share it with your friends. Definitely looking to build the audience for sure. Have yourselves a great one.